Hello online learners, welcome to chapter 23, the male and female reproductive system. Now we've divided this up just for easy's sake. The male reproductive system is pretty straightforward. It's basically the parts, the sex organs, the function of testes, and the male accessory glands. So those are the prostate gland, the seminal vesicles, and the bulbal urethral gland. Then we're going to look at hormonal control and puberty in adult, spermatogenesis, the formation of sperm and semen, and then ejaculation. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty technical. Then we get into the females, and the females a little more tricky because of the circulating or the cyclic nature of the hormones. So let's look at it.
Deliver sperm to fertilize an egg in the female. These sperm are produced outside of the body cavity by the testicles, which are located in the scrotum. The scrotum protects and supports the male reproductive organs that are located outside of the body cavity. These include the testicles, epididymis, and vas deferens. The testicles produce about 300 million sperm each day. However, this is possible only if the temperature of the testicle is 93.2 degrees Fahrenheit. The scrotum maintains this temperature by adjusting how closely it holds the testicles to the body.
Okay, so let's look at the complexity of the testicles in this for a bit here before we continue on. When we are looking at the scrotum, which is the sac underneath the penis, there are the testicles, and the testicles have all these little tubules in them. And you have tubules, so therefore you have a large amount of surface area. So it's in these seminiferous tubules where the sperm is produced. And do notice that it was 300 million per day. So I want to compare that with the female, where you have one or two eggs released every single month. So in the scrotum, you have a very good blood supply. You have the testicle with all the tubules in it, but you also have some muscles to help pull it doesn't show here. You have the muscles to pull the scrotum closer to the body if it gets cold. Now, this is one of the important things of why the testicles are in a sac below the body, is to keep the temperature cooler for proper development of sperm. The sperm needs to be at 93 degrees Fahrenheit, which is I think 36 degrees Celsius, and it keeps colder. So the sperm are formed in the seminiferous tubules, and then they will go and collect in the efferent ductules. Then they will go into the epididymis. Epi means above. So on the epididymis, which is the tubes above and outside the testes, but still in the scrotum, the sperm will then move and they will get their tails and they will mature here. And they can be stored here and remain fertile from 40 to 60 days. And unless they are ejaculated, they will then disintegrate and will be reabsorbed in the epididymis. So that's the body's way of recycling.
The interior of each testicle consists of multiple lobules containing 2 or 3 seminiferous tubules. It is within these tubules that sperm formation begins. The sperm moves out of the tubules into the epididymis, and then into the vas deferens. The vas deferens carry the sperm upward into the body cavity. After the sperm leaves the vas deferens through the ejaculatory ducts, they pass the openings of the seminal vesicles. The seminal vesicles, which are located near the base of the ejaculatory ducts, secrete a thick yellow substance to nourish the sperm. This secretion forms 60% of the volume of the semen. Semen is the sperm-containing fluid that is ejaculated at the climax of male sexual excitement. From here, the semen travels into the 8-inch long urethra, which transports both urine and semen, but not at the same time.
Okay, let's look at the journey of the sperm. So the sperm will be stored in the epididymis, and then it comes out the vas deferens when it gets around to the seminal vesicles, fluid will be added to it, and this is what makes up the semen. The whole idea of the semen is to lubricate and nourish, and also to help fight the acidity of the vagina. So you've got the seminal vesicles, which add semen, the prostate gland, which adds semen, and then this wee little circular one called the bulbourethral gland.
At first, the urethra is surrounded by the prostate gland, and then it is surrounded and protected externally by the penis that is relaxed except during sexual excitement. During sexual excitement, the penis stiffens and enlarges so it can deliver the sperm into the female vagina. During the expelling of the semen, which is known as ejaculation, the prostate gland secretes a thick alkaline fluid that increases the ability of the sperm to move in the semen. Located just below the prostate gland are the bulbourethral glands. These glands open into the urethra, and, during sexual arousal, they secrete the pre-ejaculate fluid that flushes out any residual urine from the urethra. It also lubricates the urethra to help the sperm pass through. When the male ejaculates into the vagina of the female, the sperm must travel upward through the uterus to fertilize the egg in the fallopian tube.
Let's move back to the textbook. So underneath the penis and outside the body is the scrotum, and inside the scrotum is where you will find a fibrous capsule, the testicles, the tubing, the blood supplies, and a very good nerve supply, and some muscles, and there's sometimes a wee little bit of fat there to help protect it too. So the tubules are where the sperm is generated in these in these lobules. Then there are several layers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. And then around the tubules are what's called Sertoli cells. And the Sertoli cells is where there is production of what helps produce the sperm. Okay, oops. Then in between the tubules is something called interstitial cells. Okay, there we go. Interstitial cells. And it's in the interstitial cells where you have testosterone formed. So let's look at the two different types of tissues here. You have the walls of the tubules have cylindrical cells called Sertoli cells. So the Sertoli cells, well, there's three types. There's the seminiferous tubules, which are the tiny tubes. Then you have the Sertoli cells, which development the sperm by adding nutrients. And then in between the seminiferous tubules is the interstitial cells, and they produce testosterone. So three types of tissue. Seminiferous tubules are the tubes that contain the cells that produce sperm. Sertoli cells, which add to the development of nutrients and the removal of wastes. And then you have the interstitial cells, which produce testosterone. So in the earlier hormonal layer, or in the endocrine chapter, we just talked about the testes. Now I want you to be paying attention to the three different types. The seminiferous tubules produce sperm. Interstitial cells produce testosterone. Good. Then when you look at it, there's a whole set of tubules which lead. So they will connect in this right testes. Then they're stored in the epididymis. Epi means on top of. And this is where they are matured and stored. Okay. Then during ejaculation, the sperm will move out via the vas deferens, and it will travel up through the spermatic cord to the back into the body, into the pelvic cord, or into the pelvis area. So the sperm travel up the vas deferens, and then the vas deferens will turn and become the spermatic cord. Then when it comes closer and gets the material from the seminal vesicles, it becomes the ejaculatory duct. Then it'll join the prostate gland, and the last bit here, it is called the urethra. So there's a bunch of names for it depending on where it's located. Now, as it turns and widens, there's one to each testicle, of course. Then you have the 3 glands we're going to talk about: the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and this one that looks tricky, but if you break it down, the bulbo, because it's a bulb, urethra, because it's at the point of the urethra gland. And then the fluid will then go and travel out through the urethra. So the urethra is the transport for both the sperm and the urine, but not at the same time. And it's the prostate gland that regulates which is coming through at what time. Okay, let's look at the accessory organs. And the main idea of the accessory organs are to help with sperm delivery. So first off, let's look at the glands. We have the seminal vesicles, we have the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. So seminal vesicles secrete the yellowish fluid into the duct. So this is what comprises the semen, and the semen has fructose, which is a very simple sugar, because the sperm is basically just mitochondria and tail and genetic material, and that is to help nourish and ensure that the sperm can travel, so you got good swimmers. Then you have the prostate, and the prostate kind of goes through both the urethra and the ejaculatory duct, so it helps regulate whether you're going to have urine or whether you're going to have ejaculate, that's the word, sorry. And it adds volume to the semen, and it enhances mobility again. So what I want you to notice here is that through the prostate, it is alkaline, and it's important to be alkaline because the uterus is very acidic to protect the uterus from bacteria. So the alkaline fluid helps neutralize the alkalinity of the uterus and therefore give it a better chance of living. Now, the last one sounds tricky, bulbourethral gland, but if you divide it into the syllables, you have bulbo, which sounds like bulb, and urethra, which makes sense because it's the bulb that joins the urethra. And this is clear fluid and this is the pre-ejaculatory fluid that comes out. The best description of the pre-ejaculatory fluid is it lubricates the penis, lubricates the urethra, and also helps get rid of urine. Remember that urine is very acidic, so this way it's preparing, it's kind of like the pre-ejaculate is to prepare the fluid in advance, prepare the urethra in advance, so that this way when the sperm and in the semen, so sperm is the cells, semen is the mixture with the fluid, when they come through, they can help survive better. Let's look at some of the other tissue involved here. We have the tissue that helps to cause the penis to become erect, and that is the corpus caverosum and the spongiosum. There it is, spongiosum. Now, this is 2 sets of spongy material that will help with ejaculation by filling up with blood, and as it fills up with blood, it makes the penis harder. Then other terms we have is the glans penis, which is the sensitive end. And I think those are the only ones we haven't covered. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about ejaculation on the next slide. When there is sexual arousal, the nervous system will cause a dilation of the atrial blood supply and a constriction of the venous blood supply, and that allows more blood into the penis, and because there's more blood into the penis, it will become erect. The way it becomes erect is by filling up these large cylinders, the corpus cavosum, so it's kind of like cavernous, and then the smaller one called the corpus spongiosum, and those are just spongy and cavernous, sound like things that can soak up or become full of blood. So when the blood goes into the penis, it then becomes harder and enlarges, becomes erect, and that's all in preparation for delivery of the semen into the female, and that is what ejaculation is called, or what ejaculation is the delivery of the fluid into the female. Now, when we look at primary and secondary sex characteristics, primary and secondary sex characteristics are hidden in this wee little paragraph. So the primary sex characteristic of the organs are displayed involved in reproduction. So that would be the penis and the testicles. That's the primary sex organs in the male. The secondary sex organs distinguish the sex, but are they're sort of the typical male attributes. So because of the production of testosterone in a male, the testosterone will increase growth of the vocal cords, making the voice deeper, which is a secondary sex characteristic. And also hair is the facial hair is pretty much the secondary sex characteristics in males. Now, all of this is controlled by hormones. And this is a beautiful example of the feedback loop because it goes all the way back to the hypothalamus. So when we're looking at the sex hormones, we look at the fact here that it's during the first trimester of the, let me put on my marker here. During the first trimester of male development, there is testosterone. And this testosterone is basically it's the Y chromosome that triggers the testes to produce testosterone. Then, so that's the development in the fetus. Then at birth, the testosterone rise will continue, the testosterone levels will continue to rise and then fall dramatically during 4 to 6 months. Low levels continue until puberty, which is about 14. And at this time, at puberty, that's when you have the development and the capability of reproduction. Now, we've talked about this before. You have gonadotropin releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone. So if we break that down, it's got gonad at the front, and gonad is just a generic word for sperm and eggs. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, and that comes from the hypothalamus. And then it will trigger 2 gonadotropins from the pituitary, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And we talked about this before. These hormones produce enlargement of the testes, first seen at puberty. Then LH was called other things, but we don't worry about it. So LH will cause the interstitial cells to secrete testosterone, and FSH produces spermatogenesis through the seminiferous tubules. Okay? And then as testosterone is released, this is where you get the development of hair, you get thicker skin, a good old boy sweat and activity. So that's why boys have a certain odor about them. Increase of muscle mass and the enlargement of the larynx. So when we talk about the secondary sex hormones, secondary sex characteristics, these are the secondary sex characteristics caused by the presence of testosterone. Okay, that was pretty confusing that we all went through. So let's summarize it. Okay, I need to shut this off and go there. Okay. So when we looked at it, we were talking about gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is capital G, small n, capital R, capital H. And that comes from the hypothalamus. Okay, remember that the organ releases a hormone. Then the gonadotropin releasing hormone acts on the pituitary gland. Okay, the pituitary gland. I can't draw arrows. I want to draw an arrow here, but I can't. I guess I could if I tried. Let me see if I can make an arrow. It could be too much trouble. Okay, that works. Let's just make it darker and bigger. Okay. So the hypothalamus produces gonadotropin. Oh, it shouldn't be there. It should be here. The hypothalamus is the organ. It releases gonadotropin releasing hormone. There, I like that better. It releases gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone will then act on the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland will then release two hormones. One is luteinizing hormone, and the other is follicle stimulating hormone. Now, realize that they are the same names as the female. There used to be separate names, but now they go by the female ones, okay? Follicle stimulating hormone. Let me save this because it's a good one. Needs a title, so this is male sex hormones. Good. Good. So there are two hormones. Whoops. Okay. Look at me. Draw arrows. So the pituitary gland releases two hormones. There we go. I like that. Let's just make some extra arrows over here that I can pull later. Then we have a hormone. So the hormone has to act on a structure. So follicle stimulating hormone there we go. Luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone. There we go. Luteinizing hormone now acts on the interstitial cells and the interstitial cells to secrete testosterone. Okay? Then testosterone will act on the body to create secondary sex characteristics. Good. I like that. Now, the interstitial cells secrete testosterone. follicle stimulating hormone will act on the seminal tubules to develop sperm. Okay, sperm. Now, let's color coordinate. Let's put hormones. What color do you want our hormones? Let's put our hormones in a specific color. How about purple? So, gonadotrophin releasing hormone is a hormone. We want that one purple. It's hard. There we go. I like that. And if we format our printer, follicle stimulating hormone is a hormone, luteinizing hormone is a hormone, testosterone is a hormone. There we go. Those are all our hormones. Good. I like that. That's pretty fancy, isn't it? Yay. So that is our hormone level. Quite tricky in the fact that there's levels. Now, we can actually then take testosterone. And testosterone, let's make it a different color, this arrow a different color, because it is, we're going to talk about negative feedback. So let's make it red. And it will then feedback on the hypothalamus. Okay, that's an ugly diagram, but you get the idea. So testosterone, as testosterone builds up, it will feed back onto the hypothalamus. And as it feeds back on the hypothalamus, if there is too much, it will shut down the whole process. And this is one of the concerns if a male is taking too many steroids, anabolic steroids. Quite often steroids are taken to build up muscle mass, but in the process of building up muscle mass, it will shrink the testicles. And that's because of the feedback on the hypothalamus. And with the feedback, that will decrease the amount of gonadotropin releasing hormone, which decreases the luteinizing hormone, which will then decrease the activity on the interstitial cells, and they shrink. Okay, so let's just double check that that's lovely. I like that one. Okay, I'm so proud of my diagrams. Okay, let's go back to make sure we've done pretty much everything. Other than, let's look at spermatogenesis. That is the last one here. Now, spermatogenesis has a lot of terminology, and every time it divides, it has a new term. I don't want you to be concerned about the new term, but I just want you to realize that this is meiosis. In meiosis, you start with 46 chromosomes, which is the number. So there's 23 pairs in each human, or 46 chromosomes. In interphase, everything doubles, and then it divides, and then it divides again, and it divides, and then you get your tails. So in meiosis 1, it divides and will produce, okay, interphase, it doubles. So in the process of interphase, all the chromosomes double. In meiosis 1, it divides and you have the same number as the parent. Then in meiosis 2, it divides again and you end up with half the chromosome material of the parent. And that's important because it's half the chromosome material. You will now get the 23 chromosomes from your mom and 23 chromosomes from your dad, and they come together to fuse a normal 46 chromosome human. Do not worry about all the terms, just the last one, that you have mature spermatozoan, and they mature when they get their tails. and their tails are just flagella needed for swimming. Good. Now, if we look at the sperm itself, the spermatozoa, the spermatozoa are pretty much genetic delivery missiles. Very, very streamlined. You have the acrosome, which is the head, and that's where there are enzymes to help the sperm penetrate the egg for fertilization. You have the nucleus, which contains half the normal, or has one of each pair. So, and then you have mitochondria. You need all this mitochondria to use the fructose in the semen to produce ATP to fire off the tail for the flagella so that the sperm can swim. Okay? And that is the formation of the sperm. The last thing, it talks a bit about male infertility. This is a big deal. So infertility is the inability to make sperm. Then you have erectile dysfunction, which is the inability to make the penis hard for ejaculation. And then you have erectile dysfunction, which means it won't stay up for delivery. When we talk about the male sexual arousalness, both male and female have similar arousal. The phases are the same. There is just different activities. So you have excitement, plateau, orgasm, and erection. In excitement, you basically have the visual, mental, and physical stimulation will cause sexual arousement. And then the parasympathetic, notice it's the parasympathetic, which you think is weird because that is the rest and digest. So the parasympathetic cause relaxation, and because the penis is relaxed, it will fill with blood. Then because it fills with blood, you have engorgement, you have penis enlargement, and then it becomes rigid and allows for it to enter the female reproductive system. In plateau, you have the urethral sphincter preventing urine from mixing with the semen. You have your respiration and your blood pressure remaining elevated. Excitement is preparation. Plateau is getting ready. And then you have orgasm. And orgasm, this is where the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. And with orgasm, sympathetic nervous system, you have ejaculation, emission, and expulsion. And this is basically the stimulation of peristalsis, the vas deferens, and propels the sperm through the urethra, triggers the fluid from the glands, and the semen activates expulsion of semen is the orgasm. Then you have resolution where everything is calming down. Sympathetic signals cause the arteries to constrict. And then you have the muscles squeezing everything out and the penis becomes flaccid. But notice here it starts with the parasympathetic nervous system and excitation. This is why the crude word is nightwood or night dreams. When the male is relaxed in the middle of the night, as the penis relaxes, blood can go into the penis, causing it to become erect in the middle of the night. And the male can wake up with morning wood, as it's called. Okay, so that is the male reproductive system. We'll do the female reproductive system in a different video. Much more complicated. And yeah, it's much more complicated because you have the cycles, you have the ovaries and the uterus. And that's it for the males.